Hey, welcome to week 4. So this is our kind of halfway mark as there are 7 classes. And I'd like to start out, of course, by acknowledging that PAFNW and myself respectfully acknowledge the unceded ancestral traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. PAFNW is situated upon these territories, and I'm also an uninvited guest here upon this land. And I invite you to connect to the land where you are and our shared responsibility to protect and nurture it. And that can be in so many ways. I'm thinking, have you connected to the land today? Have you been outside? Have you expressed gratitude? And if not, inviting you to take a moment to do that right now. Depending on where your day has led you and what you may or may not have experienced. Before we dive into a bunch of information in this abstract online, what do I want? What word do I want here? Online space, pardon me, that you ground into yourself, what you may need as we do this. Maybe taking a moment to take a deep breath, inhale deeply, and exhale deeply. Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. Again, we have lots of information to cover this week. And so I will ask that you keep your microphones turned off. And then if you have questions, comments, if you could use the raise hand function or write in the chat. It's not the easiest for me to be focusing on guiding this journey and in the chat. So Elaine, thank you so much for bringing that to my attention last week. And that, yeah, that your comments and questions are absolutely welcome. And if you could wait until maybe I ask for them, we'll definitely have time for that. A reminder that this session is being recorded and that your consent is ongoing and fluid. That the recording will be shared publicly on PAFNW's YouTube channel, and that by continuing in this meeting that you consent to be recorded. And then of course you are always welcome to have your camera off, even though I love to see your faces. Everything I say and invite you to participate in throughout this course is an invitation. And so if there's anything that doesn't resonate with you and that isn't right for you in the moment, that you can simply say pass, and I respect your boundaries. Okay. So this week, week 4, November 3rd, we are focusing on self-worth and inherent value. And I'll be giving some brief notes on sharing and the subsidy checks. And then we'll go into the Artist C.V, give some CV examples. We will have break time. We'll come back and do a breath and vocal exercise. And then I will chat about self-worth and inherent value. And if there's time, we will do a breakout room, either before or after talking about pricing your work. And there will be a worksheet on how to price your work. And then there'll be the work the week for homework assignment. And I neglected to put on here review of week 3 homework assignment. So maybe I'll make a little change here during the break. And so we'll go over that later. Okay. So some notes on sharing. Mighty Networks versus email. And so I had previously sent out an email to you all inviting you to an exhibition, which Adele, one of our cohort, had and is the curator for. That exhibit is still taking place. And I'm going to touch on this a bit more later, but I wanted to offer a field trip for us to all go down there to coordinate a time to meet there. And Adele has generously offered, oh my gosh, I can't speak tonight. Adele has generously offered to give us a curator's tour. So that is a wonderful gift. And so I'll send some more information on that. So I knew about that already and asked Adele if I could share. And in the past week, one of our group reached out to me and asked if I could share something else. And so I hadn't gotten to that yet. And unfortunately, the date had passed. So I apologize to you. And going forward, that if there's anyone who wants to promote anything, your artwork, upcoming events, and offerings, please feel free to do so on the Mighty Network. Under the activity feed, you can make a post which goes into the feed. And so because maybe not everyone is on the Mighty Network all the time, if you did want me to email something out, absolutely, I'm happy to do that. If you could send me like the email ready to go so that I can just forward it, so that it's just clear, concise, has the dates and times, and then I can forward that out to the group. I'm absolutely happy to do that. And I definitely want to hear about the things, if there are things that I can support and attend and celebrate you and your artwork. So yes, please, please, please share. And also, if in doubt, give me a call. And I am always happy to chat with each and every one of you. I have said this before, I'll say it again, I will nerd out on art so hard, and maybe that's why you don't want to call me, but you're absolutely welcome to. And so my phone number is in my email signature. Does anyone have any questions, comments about that? Okay. So notes on the subsidy checks. So the first installment checks are being issued this week. And so that's payment for the first 3 classes. And so it's $45 for each class attended. And the checks will be issued this week. They'll be ready on Friday, and they'll go out in the mail on Friday or Monday at latest. And so then it'll take, I don't know, a few days for you to get them, depending on where you're located. And final payment checks for the 4 classes tonight and the 3 after, those will be issued, mailed out no later than December 15th. So our last class is on November 24th. And I understand that our office is switching, you don't need to know this, but switching our payroll dates. And so hopefully it will be earlier than the 15th, but due to this administrative change, I'm just saying the 15th at the latest to be absolutely safe. Before we get going into the CVs, does anyone have any questions about subsidy checks? Okay, always feel free to send me an email also. Okay. So the Artist CV, what is it? An Artist CV is a record of your professional experiences and artistic achievements. And so you can use it to apply for exhibitions, grants, awards, gallery shows, commissions, residency programs. And it's more detailed than a resume. And so as a result of that, it's typically potentially much longer, depending on where you're at on your journey. But say you start creating artwork now, it may be short. And then as you progress, you just keep adding to it with each and every achievement and experience. And so if you are creating artwork and sharing that out in the world through the majority of your life, that list can get pretty long. And so as with a resume, when you may want to condense it, and as your experience progresses, you might remove things that are less relevant. With a CV, you typically don't do that. A comprehensive CV is kind of like an oh my goodness. It is an autobiographical list illustrating every single artistic achievement you've ever been blessed with. And so I will share some examples of that so that you can see just in a moment. But before we do that, what should your CV include? So at the top, it'll say your name and potentially some personal details. And so your contact information, I've never had my contact info on mine, typically because when you are applying for one of these opportunities, your CV is part of a package of many parts: your artist statement, your bio, samples of your artwork, and your CV. And so depending on the format of how you apply for a particular opportunity, that your contact information will be there already. It can't hurt to put it on your CV, but I've never had it on there. The teaching I received was to not include it, but there are other teachings. So that's a personal choice, and it might be contextual depending on, again, knowing your audience and your goals. Again, a lot of opportunities when you're applying for them, they're very, very specific to the point where they may even specify what to include and where. There's a lot of information online, so I'm going to go through this list here, that this list is not set in stone and that it varies. So education is standard that it would be on there at the top. However, I have mine as the very last item. And again, I'll get to that later. So standard would be to have your education there very first thing, and then list of exhibitions. And so when you have exhibited a lot, you may have exhibited in shows of large groups of people, and you maybe had one or two or a handful of artworks in a group show. And then you may have had opportunities where you've exhibited solo, completely on your own. It's just your work all there together. And so when you are starting out and you have a handful of exhibitions on your CV, then you can just list them all together by date, and then you would specify in brackets solo or group. And this may make more sense when I show you the examples if you're not familiar with this already. When you are a more established professional career artist and you have tons and tons of exhibitions on your CV, then you would have a section for solo exhibitions and then another section for group exhibitions. And then when there's so many of both, then you would have selected solo exhibitions and selected group exhibitions. And so you would then start to only include the most, I don't want to say the strongest ones, but the ones that are maybe the most relevant and the most significant. And again, those words are subjective and may depend on what you are submitting your CV for. And also the most recent would be important as well. That's particular because the more recent ones would be reflective of your growth, where the ones that happened earlier in your career might have been smaller opportunities, not smaller, but just Well, yeah, I guess smaller. My first exhibition was in my parents' cafe. So that is still on there, but other things like that I've removed because they're not relevant anymore. So another thing to include would be collections. And so that is if your artwork has begun to be collected by a certain establishment. And so like a corporate collection where sometimes different businesses, schools, establishments, they'll have art on their walls. And so if there is someone who has purchased your artwork or collected it, then you would include that under collections. Bibliography is when someone may have written about you, whether you were in a newspaper or in somebody's blog or in a magazine article. If someone has interviewed you about your work, or if your artwork was shared and mentioned, that goes under a heading called bibliography. Publications or texts is different, and that is when you have written the thing, whether or not it is about your own artwork or it is about art in general, whether it's, I mean, if you've written something and it has nothing to do with your artwork, writing is still a creative practice. So publications and texts, use your own judgment as to what to include there, but definitely that can be a section. Priscilla, yes.
So I'm wondering, would this be inclusive of all different mediums? Because there are some things that I've had like interviews or things written about filmmaking, although it's not tied to my like work that I'm doing right now. So is that like we just do one resume for everything, or?
I would make one that has absolutely everything and have it be your master CV. And then that could be on, say, your website, for example. And then when you are applying for things, sometimes they ask for a short CV, which would be, I mean, when we're talking about resumes applying for jobs, they typically say your resume should be no longer than 2 pages. For a CV, a short CV is more like 3 or 4 pages. Again, if they're asking for a short one, they'll specify. So then things like that, where you're kind of like, well, I put that on my master because it is part of my creative journey. When you're shortening it, things like that, you can remove to condense. So, but I would definitely keep one that has every single thing so that you know what your journey is. And then say you're applying for something down the road and it's all about writing, then you'd be like, oh yeah, I've got like that makes it stronger for that particular thing. Talking about cross mediums, that when we get to my CV, I'll share a bit more about that, but that there are just things that like get grouped in sections. Sorry, I'm going to kick back to what's more. I'm not going to keep talking about my experience, specifically about yours. Can you give me some more details about the different mediums?
Sorry, are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So for example, I created a short film, and so that film did win an award in the LA Shorts. I did have an interview with Tri-Cities News, and so that could go, I guess, in one kind of section. The other, like I did some, like when you were saying, what was it, collections, or solo, like I did this, when I came back from Uganda, I did a photo show as a part of like a photo story of my time when I was there. And we did that as kind of raising awareness about an organization we started and a fundraiser. And so it was just like, I don't know, probably about 20 different photos that I had selected to show. So I don't know if that it is relevant as well. Like I just, because they're different. So there's the photography, the film, and then of course, like the 6 pieces I did that were just auctioned off for ᒦᖒઅᅅતાι. So, and those are paintings. And so they're like all different. And so I'm not sure if they should all be lumped into that or.
I would put all of it in there. When I show you the examples, when you are making your CV, it will, when you're listing the exhibitions, you'll see that it's kind of like when I was talking about your portfolio, where it's the title, the date, the medium. So the medium is what it's made of. And so you put it all on there. And then under the medium, it'll say film, it'll say a mixed media painting, or it'll say oil painting, carving. I'd say put it all on there. And then because your artist statement or your bio would reflect that you are an interdisciplinary artist or a multidisciplinary artist. And so you're not just a painter or a photographer or a filmmaker. So that's part of your statement, and your CV reflects that. If your statement was that you are a painter, and then you've got all that other stuff on there, you're only applying for painting exhibits all the time, then you might not include that, but I would say it still makes it stronger. It's still like, even knowing that about you, that your practice is informed by that. So I'd say put it all on there. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Harmony.
Hi. So just in the chat, Brandon had a question. Would education include art classes you took as an elective in university? And I'm going to add to that my question, if I can, which is it okay to add classes that I've taken online? Two of them I've done with fairly well-known artists, but how would we broach that?
Yes and yes. So I'd say, like, if it has informed your work, if you took a course and it has made you a better artist, then yes, put it on there. I'm going to show you Brian Youngin's CV, and it's super professional. It is like by the book. And then I'm going to show you mine, which is not. And then you can decide what part of the spectrum you wish to be on. And there's all those infinite spaces in between. And so I'd say the CV is like, it's factual. Unless you are adding things that you didn't actually do, there isn't really any way that you can, like, I guess it's like lying on your resume, but it's not really a creative space, but you can be creative about the decisions you make and how you include them. So when I get to the examples, you'll see more of that. But if it is part of your journey and it has contributed to where you are at now creatively, then absolutely, yes, I would say put it on there. And then again, with having a master CV, if they ask for a short CV, then you might take those things off and only have the more substantial bits of information. Does that help? And Brandon, does that help? And I've got the chat up now, so I can look at it at the same time. What a revolutionary concept. Okay, Brandon, if you need more clarification, you can pop it in the chat. I've got the chat now, or you can turn on your microphone. Okay. Any more questions before I continue? Okay. So, publications, grants and awards, those go on there, and commissions. And so if folks have seen your artwork and like, oh, I love that one, and you're like, oh, sorry, it's sold. And they're like, well, could you make me another one? You may decide that you want to do that, or you may decide that you're willing to make something in a similar style. So now they have commissioned you to create an artwork. That would go under a separate section. And so commission in general would be a section, as you will see on Brian Youngin's example, that there, I think he has it called public commissions, where if I approached Priscilla and said, can you please make me this painting? And she's like, okay, I commissioned her. That would be a private commission. And if it was through PAFNW, if my work, I approached her on behalf of PAFNW, that would be a public commission. So residencies, that's pretty self-explanatory. If you got a residency, pop it on there. Representation. And so this is if you later in your career have, like Brian Youngin, that's an example, that you are now represented by a gallery. You have built a relationship with them, and they now do your marketing for you, and they, as part of their annual scheduling, that you may just have an exhibition included in their programming. They're liaising to get your work out other places. So gallery representation is for established career artists, and then they obviously take a cut of your earnings for that. And so we'll get more into that, talking about pricing your work. What is your time and energy worth to you? And for all of the energy of promoting yourself and marketing, creating those materials, the money that you could save doing it yourself, or to outsource that through being represented so that you have more time to create. And so some artists, that is a goal. It's a huge goal. And for others, it is something that they never want, that you might want to retain relationships with the folks you're creating art for, or it might just not be something that is in alignment with your own protocols. And so it's definitely a personal decision. But if you have representation, that would go on there, as well as teaching experience. And so if you have taught art classes, you see on mine, there's lots of teaching experience. Academic and related work experience. So if you have done, like, say you've got an art degree, and then you have done some work for the educational institution, or like you're a PhD candidate and you've done some work that way, that would go on there. And then related work experience, if you like have a job in the arts, like potentially myself as an arts administrator, that could go on there. I don't have that on mine, but it could go on there. Harmony, did you have your hand raised for a moment?
I did, but it was probably a really stupid question. At my last job, I actually did take over the whole arts program, unofficially though. I was working for RSCL, Richmond Society for Community Living. So I was working with mentally and physically challenged individuals. And I just took the whole arts program over. But I don't know, is that even something that I could put for teaching?
What was your job title? What was your position?
Community support worker.
Okay. And were you acknowledged, like were you recognized by the establishment for doing that work?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, then yeah, you could put that on there. I mean, I wouldn't just put community support worker,
Mhm.
that it would need to be expressed, but you're not writing like a full contextual explanation on there. So
Would kind of be in the wording.
yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, well, under related work experience, you could have, yeah, you could have that heading, related work experience, and then put that, and you could just have like a few words beside it stating, yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
welcome. Additional sections, including like non-academic experience, professional service, and professional organizations. So like if you are part of an arts collective, that would be like professional organization. Professional services, I can't think of an example off the top of my head. I don't know, maybe like you offer, I don't know, artwork framing? No, that's, I don't know actually. That's, and non-academic. Okay, well, yeah, experience that's related to art that is not academic. So yeah, maybe volunteering, great one. Thank you, Cindy. Okay, I'm catching up in the chat here. Okay. Thank you, Adele. Yeah, professional services like graphic designers associations. Thank you for helping me out there, y'all. Arts administration, where would that go? Under related work experience. Yeah. Okay. So some reminders, clear, consistent formatting. I will go over that when we get into the examples. Be honest, and quality over quantity. So that if you are just starting out and you're looking at these other Artist C.V examples and you're like, oh my gosh, I have like 5 things, it's okay. Be honest and be proud and humble at the same time that you have been blessed to do those things, and that is enough, and that you are enough, and that the right opportunities will find you exactly in the moment that you are ready for them. And so I have so much faith in divine timing, and that what is meant for you will not miss you. And so don't worry about it being short. Just be honest and be in integrity with where you're at right now, and keep it up to date. So it's one thing like, oh, you applied for a whole bunch of exhibitions at the beginning of the year, and then you got them, and so you were really busy doing that, and then you got some sales from them, and so or maybe some commissions, you're working on the commissions, and then you've had all these opportunities, and then it's ready to apply again, and you're like, oh my gosh, my CV is so out of date. When did I do that thing? What did I, oh. And so yeah, just every time you do a thing, just pop it on there. It's so much easier. And yeah, I've learned that the hard way. Okay, so let's get into some examples here. Okay, can you all see this? Great. Okay, so this is Brian Youngin's CV, and he is represented by Catriona Jeffrey's gallery. And so it's got his name. This is something that I don't have on mine, but I have been seeing that it's got B for born and the year of birth. So this is something that, as I was preparing this presentation, I'm seeing that on a lot of them, but that's something that I hadn't seen. It seems like it's pretty standard, but anyways, that is an update I'll have to make. And now this includes his ancestral cultural background. So I've also never seen that on a CV. So I like that, can include that under personal information. And lives and works in BC, Canada. So that is something that you can follow if you wish. Sometimes I've seen CVs that are just a name. Harmony is saying always pop a date on your CV file. Yes, great advice. That as you are updating your CV, that you want to date it so that you know when it was updated last. And also because you might have several versions. And if you've got like Jessica CV, Jesse CV, you're just putting different file names on them so that you can save them. Then you go in and you're like, oh, which one am I looking for? Like, so yes, file naming is a good time saver. Thank you, Harmony. So here we've got first thing, education. And you'll notice the formatting here, that we've got years all along the left-hand side here. The whole thing is organized by dates in each section. So education, 1992, received a diploma of visual art from Emily Carr College of Art and Design, Vancouver. So this is just one item. And you'd say that maybe a standard teaching would be to only include academic education. And when we're talking about like very professional galleries that, sorry, I just got distracted by the chat, that might be typical. However, if we are decolonizing our art practice and our career journey, then, I mean, I've now realized that so much of my education has come from elders. And so I've recently added that under education. And so just because it isn't the norm doesn't mean that it doesn't belong. And so even if you search up how to write an artist CV, it's going to give you this pretty standard structure, which is pretty dry. But if it has informed your journey and it speaks to your education, then I would absolutely include it. Okay, sorry. Oh my gosh, Brennan, that's when I was born. I thought that you're saying that's when he was born, and I was confused. Okay, got it. So this also speaks to, okay, that's when you were born. Your CV is going to be a lot shorter. He's been doing this for a long time. So CV is so long. Okay, selected solo exhibitions. So he's had so many exhibitions that they all can't be included. And you can see that it goes from the most recent to the least recent. So you want to have the things you've done most recently right up at the top. And so got Hammer Contemporary Collection, Brian Youngin. So this was the name of the exhibition. And so because it's a title, it's in italics. And then you'll note a comma, no more italics. It will say the name of the institution, the city, and the country. And so then this is another one in the same year. And again, it is the title of the exhibition, the name of the institution, the city, and the country. And so reflecting on my own CV recently, I was like, well, am I going to write what is settlerly known as Vancouver? Am I going to put Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh territory? And so that can be a personal choice, that we have the opportunity to shift the narrative in how we represent ourselves. And so by sticking with these colonial constructs of what a CV must be, we can definitely follow the template and the format, or can break free from that in our own ways. So that's something that I'm reflecting upon right now and haven't yet made those changes, but yeah, opening the conversation for that. And if that's something that resonates with you, I would say absolutely reflect the place names that that you connect to, that are your truth. So here we've got year and then 2 entries. This one, the year, there was only 1 in 2019. Again, just going down, the the formatting changes here. I'm not sure why. Casey Kaplan. It's missing the titles of the exhibition. So I don't know why that is. But for the most part, you can see that the formatting is consistent. So these are all solo exhibitions. We get to selected group exhibitions. And again, same formatting. Lots and lots of them. And this is just the selected ones. And then we've got monographs. So this is something that I did not include in the examples, and because it's specialized. So there may be things on your CV that are not part of the norm and the standard, but maybe you've done a lot of one thing, and so you can make a heading for it. Or even if you've done one special thing, make, not that everything that you do creatively isn't special, but one thing that you might need to create its own heading for. So if you don't see it in my example or on the internet, doesn't mean that it shouldn't be on there. So trust your gut. And so a monograph is, it's like a, from my understanding, a smaller publication that the gallery puts out pertaining to the work of an artist, as opposed to like those big coffee table books. And so it's been included in lots of monographs. And then there's books and exhibition catalogs. So like the big coffee table books. And then also when an exhibition takes place, they'll make, so then what's the difference between a monograph and an exhibition catalog? I have to do some Googling there. But yeah, I've never seen that on a CV before. So an exhibition catalog, when the gallery has put it on an exhibition, there will be a book of the works included in that exhibition, and maybe some writing, some research on those pieces. No, that would be, pardon me, sorry, the monograph would be more like research, writing, more in-depth. The exhibition catalog, I think, is just the works included in the exhibition specifically. Okay, there we go. Might need to verify on that, but that would be my understanding of that. So lots of them. And then magazines and periodicals. So I mentioned that there is publications or texts, and here we've got more, there's a lot of written stuff, and so there's even more specific headings. So magazines and periodicals that he and his work have been written on, tons and tons and tons. Published writing and works by the artist. So now these are bodies of work that he has actually written himself. Here we have public commissions. One public commission, like that name, the ghost on top of my head. Yes, Lisa.
I know this is an odd question. why would somebody so accomplished need to have such an extensive CV? I guess it's because I'm feeling right now like, oh, I might have 4 things on my CV as a starting out. And I guess we'll talk about self-worth later, but I'm kind of like blown out of the water, like, but what would the point for this artist be to have all of this in one place? Like, is it like publicly, like people researching him or something? I don't know.
I think because the CV is meant to be your full, the illustration of your full journey, and that it's not, you're not meant to condense it like a resume. That if you've done the thing, it goes on your CV. Only if they ask for a shortened CV do you start to remove things. Like the selected exhibitions, I mean, I might remove, like when we get to mine, that there are things like there was a nightclub that had like a little gallery attached to it, and I had one painting up in this show. So that was mostly like people who like needed a break from the nightclub dancing might pop over into this more chill gallery space, maybe see the artwork. And so I've removed that from my CV. And so there might be things like along your journey that you remove because they're not reflective of the artist that you are now. But mostly your CV doesn't need to be short, that you just keep adding and adding and adding to it. And so this is the stuff he's done. So it just keeps going on there.
And how do we make ours? So I have items. How do I make mine look a little more beefy then? That's my next question. That's it. I'll take my hand down. But I think, how does one beef it up other than just continually showing and whatnot? Like, you know?
Yeah, you don't. You just be honest and you stand in your gratitude and integrity that you have been blessed to have those 4 or 5 opportunities. And then you just keep building and growing, just like a plant, that you don't go and be like, why do you only have 3 leaves? You go like, over time, it may blossom and grow taller, and it may, I don't know, stay a little pot bound and stay like a little bonsai. And so it depends on the journey. It depends on your own trajectory, but be proud of where you are and don't worry about beefing it up. That would be the one thing that I would say is, it's more about your perception of yourself. And if you feel like, we will get into that later, and you feel like it's not enough, then that isn't true, that you are always enough. And so don't worry about beefing up. Quality over quantity.
Hi, sorry.
Yeah,
I can add this program on my CV, right? Like what
oh
we're
my
doing right
gosh. Yes, you can.
Thanks. That's all I wanted to say.
Yes, you can. I'm just catching up in the chat. Okay. So yeah, lots and lots on here. Where are we? Published writing and works by the artist, public commissions, residencies, and awards. Okay, we finally got to the bottom. Okay, great. So that is Brian Young and CV. Now we will pop over to mine for some contrast. Okay, this is on my website, and so I have been a little bit more creative with it when I am submitting it. Obviously, this big header of color is not there. It'd be more like this. So I've just got my name on there, And I don't have the year I was born. I don't have any information about myself. So I may look to add that, as that is right there. And even in doing some research on CVs, there's something that I learned that I'd never heard of, and I've also never witnessed, is I can't remember what they called it, a personal statement. And so it's a very short, condensed statement at the beginning of your CV saying what your CV kind of includes. Be like, it's like a little blurb that I've never written one. And so I can't even give you an example, but kind of like Jessica Miinguuaqtii is a interdisciplinary, or this is a, nope, can't even give you an example. Maybe I'll find one at the break. Sorry about that. There's something that is a short, concise statement about what is included in the CV. That is the only bit of prose writing that isn't just a list, that I've never seen before, but I found it on 2 examples while I was researching. So something to consider if any of what I just said made sense. So selected exhibitions is first. I have not put my education first. And so this is a personal choice where I felt that my artwork and my experience was more relevant and informative than my educational background. And also because in the very beginning, I was self-taught. And so that putting very minimal educational experiences, like one continuing studies abstract painting class at Langara College, wasn't as exciting as I'd had an exhibition at the time. So again, your CV, what you highlight and where can change over time. Sometimes when you look at like how to write a CV on the internet, there's a particular order. I've never pulled up one of these suggestive templates and had them been the same. So one person could say it must be this order, another person would say it must be that order. Typically, you want your exhibitions pretty close to the top, but again, you can always make a personal decision. So, selected exhibitions. Here, I have not had more. Okay, no, I have. So I have just put an entry for each one, and I have duplicated the year. And so over here, you can see that the year is just listed once, 2021, and then there are multiple entries. 2013, again, multiple entries. So that is a stylistic choice. But again, it's got from the most recent to the least recent on here. So again, the title is italicized. And so I have now, since COVID, specified this one was a virtual exhibition. So it didn't actually take place in person, it was online. So I've got that in brackets there. And so again, the institution, the city, and the country. And so this was online. It was a partnership between PAFNW and UBC. So, okay, 5 minutes to break. Yes. Okay. Sorry. So again, this one was a collaboration with another artist in a group exhibition. So I've put that the artwork was a collaboration with ᒦᖒഅᖅᑕΙ again. So in brackets, I have specifications that make it unique instead of making subheadings, because as you can see, there aren't a ton here. And so to make subheadings with just a few entries didn't seem like the best choice yet. So instead, I've just made these little specifications in brackets. So one of those specifications is solo shows, so that here because it doesn't say solo shows and doesn't say solo exhibitions, group exhibitions, it's assumed that they are all group exhibitions. And so the ones that aren't, I have specified otherwise. So this one, I wrote self-organized solo show. So this was an exhibition that I put on for myself. So if you are at any point in your career, if you wanted to show your work and you wanted to do it soon, you have a whole bunch of artwork that you're excited about, you could find a space and put on an exhibition and invite people and market it yourself. And so this one was a self-organized solo show. And this one, nope, pardon me, this one here was in the amenity room of my apartment building at the time. So I didn't even give it a fancy title. It was art show and website launch. I was celebrating that I'd launched my website. And so it's a self-organized solo show. And that Capitol building was where I lived. And I put that on there. So that might be maybe ways to beef up your resume, as Lisa put it, but I wouldn't call it that because it's something that is relevant and that I did. So Celebration of Spring, this is a group exhibition that was juried. So there were prizes for certain artworks. And so that the work went in front of a jury to be included. And this one wasn't a solo show, it wasn't a group show, but there were only 2 of us. So it was half my artwork, half the work of another artist. So it's a duo exhibition. This one was just a straight up solo exhibition. And this was another self-organized solo exhibition. Okay. So here, kind of pertaining to Priscilla's question, I now have film projects on here, which were all done in this year. So that's its new heading on here, where none of this was, one of them was kind of film related, projection mapping, and it says that there. So again, I specified that it was a projection mapping workshop presentation. And so the rest of them are not projection mapping, so it doesn't say that. And so it kind of, if you're working across mediums, that you might put specifications in beside there. Lisa, yes, question.
Okay, so if when I'm looking at this, is there anything wrong with if I'm doing, like I do a lot of spoken word features, but I do them for the same organization, but I've done them, like I've featured like in like 2020 for this organization, but then I featured again. Is it easier just to group all of those together if it's like repeat, if it's a performance with the same organization as a feature? Or is it better to go spoken word and just list it all per year?
You can see under my teaching experience that I have 4 entries with PAFNW, and I've listed them all separately because they're all different things. They're all teaching, but I was teaching different things. So if the spoken word, if you are presenting something different each time, I would say it's a new thing, that you're evolving each time you're doing it. I assume that unless it's like, it's the same organization, it's the same body of work, and it's just a different time, then I might lump it together. If it's a different presentation, then I would say it's a new performance. And so each performance is relevant. Does that help?
I think so. And again, I saw a question in the chat about, the other question would be, if I was the head of the president of the Gabriel Poetry Society, and I curated over 6 years almost like at least 150 different shows. I did one every month, right? So how would you suggest that?
I would say I've got some more questions about that, but maybe connect with me directly and we could hash that out.
Okay, and I see someone in the chat had a similar question, so you might.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm wondering, hang on, I'm wondering how to categorize 200 plus art shows that I've either curated or organized. This is new to me. And so I don't have an answer for that quite yet. I'd like to know like the similarities and differences. There are like one of the categories that you can put on your CV is like curation. And so every time you've curated a show that you put that on there. So I would say that each time you curate an art show, that's a line. Like when you look at Brian Youngins, there are a lot of entries. And so it is the breadth of your experience. So yeah, I'd put it on there. Especially if they're with different organizations, different institutions, different places, absolutely. Lisa, your question more being that it's the same place, but that they are like, if they are a different performance, then it's a performance.
Okay, that sounds good.
And so I'm just going to get through my CV and then we'll break just a little bit later, but break is coming. Okay. So I have private commissions and corporate commissions on mine. And so I've got the title of the work, the name of the folks who sponsored me to do it, and where the commission was done or where it ended up being. So whether I made it here and it went to them there, or if I was there and made it there, I put where the artwork ended up. And so corporate commissions, these were for establishments. And again, the name of the artwork, who sponsored me to do it, the city and the country. Bibliography, where folks wrote about my artwork. If you are ever on the front page of a magazine, a newspaper, that you want to specify that. When you're someone like Brian Youngin, who potentially has been on many, it's not specified whether or not. But when you are an emerging artist, something like that is relevant for sure. And I've included like, this was a blog, so this is online. And so again, when we talk about beefing up your resume, that might be something that later along the lines that you remove. If you're in a bunch of newspapers and magazines, that someone's online blog you might not need to have that anymore. I like it. Like, I like that, like anything that is part of the journey is, I don't know. I like that. I just like it. Sorry, I'm trying to get to break and my brain is fried. But that if it's part of your journey, that it's hard to say what's more meaningful just because it might have more prestige connected to it. Publications as author. If you like, again, what did he call it over here? Oh my goodness, there are so many. I missed it too. Something authored by artist. what was the title? Magazines and periodicals. I think I lost. Okay, I'm just going to let that go. Same thing, but called it something different. So again, your headings may vary.
You called it published writing and works by the artist.
Thank you, Elaine. Published writing and works by the artist.
Yeah.
I put publication as author, means the same thing, different wording. Thanks, Elaine. And then this is something unique. Like I made my own heading, artwork, appearances in film, that my artwork was rented and used as set dressing in the background of a movie. And so that only happened once, but I thought that that was something relevant. And so I made my own heading and added it. So these unique things, you're like, well, I did this thing, but it doesn't fit in there. If you feel it should be on there, then put it on there, give it its own space, carve it out. And so Lisa is saying, oh, Trev, I was going to watch that movie the other night. You kind of Jennifer's Body, it's kind of like a Halloween type theme is fitting. When I signed off on the script, they sent me part of the script for the scene that the artwork was going to be in. I had to sign a contract to release. And because there was graphic content in the scene, I needed to give special permission for it, that I was okay with that content. So this doesn't really go with the CV. I'm saying when these unique opportunities come to you, to really connect with your values. Just because it's an opportunity, it may not be aligned with your values. And so a lot of starting out artists just be like, anything that comes to be like, oh my gosh, yes, but that what is meant for you will not miss you. And so when we get into talking about worth and value, we can also talk about scarcity, that we are sometimes afraid of saying no to something because something else might not come. That is not true. When we are in alignment with our integrity and our values, then that sets the bar for what we attract. So I was okay with the content, but I just thought it was relevant to bring that up. And that the final cut of the movie, you can barely see my artwork. My sister and I went to the theater to watch it and thought we were going to cheer when we saw it. And we were like looking for it. So you may not see it, Trev, if you do watch it. And Lisa, I was in a band. Would I list all the gigs we did, or only CDs? I'm not certain. That it depends on what your goal is. That here, the CV, we're talking about visual art. That again, now we're talking about spoken word, which is performance. And then the band is more like musical performance. So now we're veering off into a whole other realm where there are different practices around music. So that might be where there is an imaginary border of, that would be a personal decision that, and also I might have to do some more research because that's not something I've encountered before. And okay, more chat stuff. What scene is it in? It was supposed to be in a scene where, what's her name? Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried, the two women in the film, they were fighting and they were meant to be fighting topless. And that didn't end up even happening in the movie. And also that, but anyways, there's one painting in Megan Fox's bedroom and there's another painting in Amanda Seyfried's bedroom. And I only saw one of them and it's like the corner, like just like the edge. And also it's the background, so it's blurry. Okay, teaching experience. Lots of teaching and for the same place a bunch of times. So there's PAFNW is on there quite a bit. And also Dewey is on there quite a bit. And so I'd say, again, multiple entries for the same place is okay if you're doing different things. Here again, I specified that this was an online course. And so this was online too, and I didn't. So again, consistency is key. So I would go back and when I update this, I'd put in brackets online. Education, I now have more education, but this is unique. So instead of, okay, looking for my actual institutional education, that I have an Associate of Arts degree from Douglas College. So I have a 2-year diploma from Douglas College. And so that would be like the bulk of my formal education. And then I took a continuing studies certificate program through Emily Carr. And so it's not accredited through a, like I didn't get credits for those courses. They're not transferable for a degree, but this absolutely changed the trajectory of my experience as an artist. So I put it on there. And this was just a 1-week workshop. But again, it gave me skills that I would not have found otherwise. And again, changed my abilities and my practice. So even though it was just a week workshop from a gallery, I included it. And so again, it's up to you what you include. I've got now on here traditional Anishinaabe teachings from a knowledge keeper, Cynthia Myron. I received those teachings when we were on a retreat on Bowen Island. And so if they were cultural teachings that did not inform my art practice, then I may not include them. But again, I felt that these were relevant, that they informed the work that I began to do in film. And so that was important to me to also acknowledge my teachers. And so that's on there. So again, you can shape things that are not typical to reflect your unique experience. Yeah, and then this was a decolonizing management course. And again, it's a management course, but because it has shifted my mindset, again, it has informed the work that I do. So this isn't specifically arts education, but I felt that that was relevant. And so there are things on here, like I dropped out of photography school at Langara. At one point I had it on here and I removed it because I didn't feel it was relevant. I might put it back on there. Again, this is not my master. So that is on my master CV. And then grants and awards. Okay, so that is a lot and we are a little bit running behind. So I'm going to say we'll take a 10-minute break back at 7:20. Let's say, okay, a 9-minute break back at 7:25, everyone. See you all in 9 minutes at 7:25. Okay. Hey everyone, we are back. And so just a tip in regard to CVs, that by looking at other artists' CVs, it can help you visualize your potential career path. That you might know that you want to create certain types of artwork and that you want to be able to support yourself continuing to do that, and might not know where to start looking and how to support yourself. And we're going to talk about that a bit more later in the course, about applying for exhibitions and things like that. But that by looking at another artist who maybe works in a similar medium as you, or mediums, that it can help you, like, oh, they exhibited there, what's that gallery, and look it up. And that might be somewhere that you might want to work towards applying for. So that's helped me. And then also, like, blue sky goals, like the sky is actually the limit. And where right now we might talk about, like, oh, my CV only has these 4 things, but that anything is possible. I promise you this, anything is possible. And so I don't know, I have this heart's desire. There's an artist residency on Fogo Island, which is in what is settlerly known as Canada. And it's beautiful, it's on this island, and I want to go there. I want to have a residency there. And that is not somewhere where I'm at yet, but that's something I dream of. And even noticed that Brian Youngin has done that residency, which I only just discovered today when looking at his CV. And so that by looking at other artists' CVs, that other artists that you admire, for the blue sky dreams that you can start visualizing and calling in now. And then also artists who are maybe more parallel to where you're at now. And I mean, they've already had that opportunity. So it's not like you're cheating on any test, that you're like looking at someone else's paper, just looking at their CV and being like, hey, they did that thing. Maybe that thing would also be supportive to me as well. So that's a hot tip there. We already had break. And unfortunately, I am going to preserve the breath and vocal exercise. It's a very wonderful, useful practice. But because we're short on time, I'm going to prioritize some other things. Maybe we can come back to this at another time. If you wish to do it on your own time, it's super simple. You sit comfortably with your spine in one line, and you inhale through your nose and exhale through your nose for 7 breaths. And then you inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth for 7 breaths. And then you inhale through your mouth and exhale through your mouth for 7 breaths. Typically done with your eyes closed, and deep, deep breaths. So like to full capacity and exhaling everything out. And that is something that can help release tension, stuck energy, blockages, can just ground you if you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed. And it helps me to find clarity. And so when we are in these abstract processes, like we're going to start talking about money now and calculations. And so getting into our body and nourishing our body can be very important. In the breath, you are bringing fresh oxygen into all of your cells, and that includes your brain cells, which will help you do the calculations. So maybe just right now, instead of doing the whole exercise, you just want to take one very deep inhalation, maybe the deepest breath you have taken all day. Feeling, breathing into all the crevices, all the places in your body, and exhaling very deeply, every last bit out. And then primal sounds, again, this is about connecting to your body. And you see animals out in the wild, they have all these ways to clear their energy. Animals, they don't really, maybe I would argue this, they don't hold grudges. You can see that dogs have very colorful personalities, and cats maybe seem like they always have a grudge. But for the most part, animals, they know how to clear their energy. And so they're often shaking and barking or growling or whatever their noise is, crowing, cawing. They're moving this energy all the time. And so we are in animal bodies. And so to connect to that, where we have been civilized and so often don't make weird, really expressive noises. Some of us do, but I invite you to do that, and it helps release things where you're like, I don't want to do that. Like weird primal noises. And they can be playful as well. It doesn't have to be like this negative sound, but it can help, like even in my voice. So that's that practice that perhaps you can explore on your own time. Because, and the reason why I bring that up is because it can help to physically, somatically release blockages. And many of us have blockages around money. And so I'm going to offer a trigger warning here that this includes discussion of emotions. And I mean that kind of as a joke, but in all seriousness, that when we're discussing worth, we must also discuss lack of worth and where beliefs regarding our value come from. And so this may be triggering as we dive into where our potential abundance blockages originated. Okay. So know your value and know your worth. You are infinite. And so it can feel challenging to price our artwork, our creations, these things that we have made from our heart and soul. And when we aren't clear on our own worth and value, the things that we have created, which are an extension of us, it can be hard to place worth and value on that. So what is self-worth? And I would define it as unconditional love and acceptance. Self-worth is an inner sense of being good enough, worthy enough, worthy of love and belonging. And so that sense of belonging innately is there, that you are worthy of love and belonging, but we have these beliefs about that. And so where we often go looking for these feelings is from others, but that first it comes from yourself, and it also comes from creator, God, source. If you're an atheist, even from your higher power within you and the universe. And so that a lot of times we place our value and our worth outside of ourselves, but that it's already there in you. And so self-worth is often confused with self-esteem, and which comes from our experiences, our achievements, and what you might define as success. And so because our achievements are inconsistent, and that sometimes we fail and learn lessons, that your worth is not tied to that. But sometimes the wires in our beliefs get crossed, where we feel like a failure means worthlessness. May believe that if I have not succeeded at this thing, then I am worthless and unlovable, which is not true. And so your self-worth never changes. You are always worthy of love, when you give this unconditional love and acceptance to yourself, this is reflected back to you in your outer reality. So as within, so without. We often go trying to control our outer reality and control everything that's going on outside of us in order to feel some kind of way inside of us, where what is actually true is when we work on how we feel inside, then the outside will reflect that back to us. And so your unconditional love and acceptance of yourself is going to be paramount in helping you along your artistic journey, which I'll get to in a bit. Maybe, why are we talking about love? Because love is embedded in everything. And so we accept what we are willing to receive. So you teach others the standard of how lovable you are by how much love you give to yourself. And so another thing about boundaries and scarcity was saying that when I was approached to rent my artwork to the film, that they sent me the script for me to decide if it was aligned with my values. And because at that time, it was very early, I was just starting out, and I didn't have a lot of self-worth at that time. And so I probably would have said yes, regardless. I was like, it's a movie, like my art's going to be in a movie, like my ego and just the excitement of that I don't know, I was a different person then, that I may have shelved my values for money and for the opportunity, for the exposure. But when we know our worth and we know our value, and it isn't coming from something outside of us to prove that, then we can stand in our values in integrity and say no to what doesn't serve us. So, and then that also comes into pricing, that if someone offers us a price that isn't reflective of our value, that we are comfortable saying no, believing that another opportunity will come. Okay, and so I'm going to acknowledge that this might be difficult for some folks, depending on where you're at on your journey. And so again, hence that trigger warning. Please do what you need to do. If you need any additional support, please reach out to me, and that we can talk further on this as well. Blocks to self-worth and abundance. Why might we believe we are unworthy of all we desire? And this means artistically and in life in general. And so, I mean, how we do anything is how we do everything. And so our beliefs, they kind of create a filter over our world. And so if I have a belief about my worth and my value, it's going to affect everything. And so right now we're framing it how it's going to affect our art career, but again, it will also stem into other things. So we may have developed false, usually unconscious beliefs about ourselves and the world. And so some of these false beliefs that are not true are that I'm not good enough, I'm not perfect, I will be good enough only when certain thing happens. So I will be good enough when I get that Fogo Island artist residency, and everything that I do up until then is just like, I'm just trying to get there. Once I have that opportunity, then I'll be a famous, established artist, as good only when I have a CV, as long as Brian Youngins, then I will be good enough. And that's not true. And so and this is also like, I want to use weight, like this ties into body image, right? When I am this number on the scale, when I am this size of clothing, then I will be beautiful, then I will be worthy. So this definitely ties into art. It ties, how you do anything is how you do everything. Another false belief is I did something bad and therefore I must be punished, right? As children, it's like, even like you spilled juice on the floor and it's like, God, don't do that. Oh, you clean that up, go to your room, whatever it is. That if we make a mistake along our journey, that even though there might not be someone there to punish us, that we punish ourselves internally. That, oh, I didn't get that exhibition, I must be a terrible, terrible artist, and internally punishing ourselves. And that our, I don't want to say failures, I would say that our realignment on our path, that again is not reflective of your value. But because these beliefs get formed in us from a young age, if I make a mistake, I may have been taught that I must be punished. We often do that to ourselves. And then there's a false belief formed that I don't deserve love. Another false belief is that I am a burden. And so if I have what I want, it will cause someone else to have less. And so when we ask for something, perhaps, and are told that, no, that's too expensive, you can't have it, that can form a belief that I'm not worth it. And so again, when we're placing a price on our artwork, when we have formulated a price, which I'm going to give a more tangible formula of how to do that. But if we put a price on our artwork, but we don't believe in our worth, and then we start to second guess, like, oh, like that's expensive. Is anyone really going to pay for that? And that I can't, there's that belief in the background that I can't have what I want because it's too expensive, I'm not worth it. Or that in me having that money, then that's taking money from somebody else. And so that we might have an inner conflict in regard to that. And another one is that it's too much work, it's too hard, I don't have the energy. So we might even think that having this success, like however you define that, that then it's going to be harder to manage it all. That the more responsibility I have, the harder the work. And so that we may push away from growth. And another belief is money is evil, that money is bad. And so we cannot attract what we are resisting. And so if there is an unconscious belief that a grant comes from the government and I don't want that dirty money, then you are resisting that money. And so you're not going to attract it. And if that's your values, then that is fine. And so just it's connecting to our beliefs, where they come from, and how they might be blocking us from what we actually truly desire. Does anyone have any questions or comments about that? Okay, I'm going to continue. Pricing your work. What is your time and energy worth to you? And so understanding that it's all energy, time, attention, services, goods, and money. We trade these things for each other, and the value is based on our perception. And so if I am doing a service for someone, then they may give me money for that. Like I am teaching a class. Perhaps someone asks me to come and teach a class somewhere else, and they're offering to give me money to do that. So I'm offering a service in exchange for money. Sometimes just attention can be exchanged for money. And think about therapy and someone just sitting, listening. And sometimes goods, a lot of the times goods, your artwork, your creations. But we might trade these things, not always for money, in different ways. But why do we place such value on money above the others? Why is there sometimes this hierarchy? And it's just ingrained in our beliefs that your goods, your services, your attention, your time is all very valuable. And so how you choose to be compensated for that is up to you. And so unpacking our false beliefs about our worth and value allows us to connect to our inherent worth and value so that we can begin to attract what, let's say what we deserve, but our worth. So as an artist, there's a lot of things where we invest time. And even how we say that phrase, that we invest time, invest being a term that's typically tied to money. And so you start to realize how the language connects these things, ties them all together. So you have administration time and supplies time. So the time that you are out, like buying your art supplies, or you are writing your inventory, and like, I made this artwork, so now I'm going to write down its title, its year, its date, and then its medium, and then also updating your CV, all things like that, that even though you are selling this one piece of artwork, are you going to pay yourself for the time that you're doing all these other things, like marketing and sales time? And so maybe you're posting on Instagram, or you are making a flyer and going around your community and posting that flyer up, like, hey, come on by, I'm having this art exhibit, that maybe you're self-promoting. A gallery will often do some promotion for you. Obviously, you're still going to want to do that in your own way to your own network and channels. Creation and studio time, that's self-explanatory. And also something that is largely overlooked is vacation time. So that rest is so important. In order to be creative, we need to have the energy to do that. And so giving your time, giving yourself time for recuperation, for vacation outside of your practice. And so how we calculate our pricing is including our time, but also the cost of our materials and our overhead. So obviously what you, and maybe you don't have any cost of materials, maybe it's all, you have gone and you have actually, you've harvested your materials and you've gone and it's all from the land. But the time and energy that you put into that is also very valuable. So cost may not be a monetary cost. Cost of materials and your overhead. Maybe you are renting a studio and you have Wi-Fi there, or you're using your home as a studio. And by the way, if you are, you can write that off on your taxes. That's a whole other course, but that you can, again, there's expenses, your overhead as an artist, that even part of your phone bill, that you can do that, by the way. How long does it take to make each product? So again, that's creation and studio time. But what is the cost of materials? That's okay. I've duplicated myself here, so sorry about that. What is the sale price of each product? And then what is your net income for each product? And so again, I'll show you how to calculate this. And so I have a form here, but I did not have access to a scanner. And so I was trying to type it up at the break. I will have this uploaded into the Mighty Network so that you will have access to it. I'm just going to show you where I'm at for now in order to explain this better, but it's not complete. So just a moment. Susan, no, we will not be covering taxes in this course. So that was just sort of a tip that's a whole other component that that you can go down that rabbit hole. Yeah. Okay, stop sharing. Okay. So this is the beginnings of the calculation. So here, your admin and supplies time. So maybe you have worked 8 hours in the week. And so then you've got 32 hours in the month and 384 hours in the year. Your marketing and sales time, 12 hours in a week, so 48 hours in a month. And so that's 576 hours in the year. Your studio time, and these are just arbitrary numbers that you can calculate. I'm just plugging these in as a template. Okay. Creation studio time, 25 hours, and then 100. And so you've got 1200 here. And so this is in a box here. So this 1200 here, this is called box 1. And we'll come back to that in a minute. So your total career hours then of all these added up, it's gonna be 45, is 180, and is 2,160. Okay. So then say you want 3 vacation weeks in a year. And so 45 hours in a week. That's a lot, and then hours in a year, 135. Okay. So then your total career hours in the year is, you've got your total career hours minus your vacation time, your vacation hours, is going to give you 2,025. So this is box 2. Then you're going to want to decide, this is not, you do not have to do it this way. This is one way. But then you're going to decide what you say you want your annual desired income to be. So let's say you want your annual desired income to be $50,000. So I'm just going to check the chat. Okay. Okay, so determining your hourly wages. And so I was having some troubles with formatting here. So I'm going to get rid of this. Actually. Okay, and I'll try to make this make more sense because I'm going off of a sheet here and I was just trying to replicate this. So when I send this to you, hopefully it'll be self-explanatory. So determining your hourly wage. So this is the number from box 3. This is the number from box 2. So your number from box 3 is 50,000. Okay. And you're going to divide that by the number in box 2, which is 2,025, which equals 24.69. So that is your career hourly wage. And then again, box 3, 50,000 divided by, this one is box 1. So sorry, that should be. And that should be a box. That should be a box. Okay, so over in box 1, we've got 1,200. And then we've got equals 41.66. So this number is our true creative hourly wage. So this is our career hourly wage. This one is our true creative hourly wage. And so this is our creation time. So that's kind of what our wage is. If we want to make $50,000 a year on our art practice, then that's what we want to be paid for the hours in the studio. This is if we're including all of the work we do. That's our career hourly wage for all the things. So it means that in order to do that, and sorry, we're at the end of class. So I am going to put this in the Mighty Network under the course info. It will go further into how to then from this calculate your work. But I will say this is one way to do it. I have never done it this way. And so this is a teaching from Chris Tyrell. It's a course I took that was through Emily Carr Continuing Studies years ago. And sorry, pardon me, says my mom, well established is total area times hourly wage materials cost. So anyways, that is one way to do it, but there are different ways to do it. I found a simple formula for pricing my artwork that had nothing to do with my overhead and my costs. And so this is maybe the right way to do it. I instead took the dimensions of my paintings. So I measured them. And so say I had a painting and it was 36 by 48 inches. And so just put this down here, 36 times 48. And so 36 by 48, that is 1,728. That was the base price for a painting. So I took that number of painting that big, and so it was based on size. And so then that number, depending on how much it cost me to make the painting and how long I spent on it and how attached I was to it personally, I would tweak the price. If it was something that I absolutely loved and was hard for me to let go of, then I upped the price a bit. And if I put gold flakes, gold mica flakes in there, and the materials I used were harder to acquire and were more expensive, and I use the term expensive where it may be actually paying for the thing, it may be just acquiring, like how much time, energy, effort I put into sourcing those materials, then again, it might be, the price might be higher. And so it's up to you. Just because there is a formula doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. It's good to know, and it's good to reflect upon, like knowing your worth, knowing your value, knowing that your time and your energy isn't just in your creative time. And so to definitely pay yourself for that if you can. And so then when you are pricing it out, taking into account these different factors. So you might have one way to form a base price, and then you can set it. You can look at other artwork similar to yours and see how other people are pricing it, and then gauge on that. But you don't know how they came to that price. And saying like, if one person jumps off that's a terrible saying. Wow. I never actually consciously thought about that. If some person does something, it doesn't mean that you should do the same thing and that it's going to work for you. It can be a great template and you can use that to help you. You're going to find your own way. So I will provide the actual like standard calculation formula, but I also share with you that that's one way that I priced my work in the past, and it worked really well. My first, yes. Hello?
Can I interject? This is Elaine.
Yes, hi.
One of my friends who's a famous artist who will remain unnamed gives himself a raise every year.
Yeah, it's inflation, and also just that as your experience and you hone your craft and your skills, that you're going to get better and better. And so that your pricing should reflect that. Thanks, Elaine. Also, my very first art show in my parents' cafe, it almost sold out. And it was just like on the walls in the cafe. And I had one art history professor at the time, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And she told me straight up, she's like, you need to double your prices. And I was like, I had no idea. That brought up a lot of terror in me because it triggered my self-worth. It triggered, am I worthy of that, to double my prices? And so it brought up a lot of emotions. It brought up a lot of fear that if I double my prices, that nobody's going to buy it. It's going to be too expensive, right? Those unconscious beliefs of I'm not worthy, that you can't have that, it's too expensive, put it back, all of that. So when I am doing something that I believe is in my best interest, that is reflected back to me by advice from someone who is a mentor, and it brings up emotions, and say, don't push those emotions away, that the only way out is through. And often, and only your nervous system is going to tell you what is best for you, but that when we are ready to move through those blockages, the clarity and the growth is on the other side. You can't get out of a room without going through it. So you don't need to do anything. Sorry, that word, nobody needs to do anything that anybody says. You have the opportunity, you have the choice to, if you are ready, to start to identify, where do I have blockages around abundance, around my worth, around my value? And when I used to stick to formulas and the right way to do a CV and the right way to price my work and the way that is typical and standard, it left out so much room and for me to find the way that was right for me. That you are unique, your practice is unique, your work is so unique. There is no perfect formula. And that also trying different ways, you can change your mind. You are the creator of your work, of your practice, of your experience. And so when we feel empowered, then we are confident in our worth and in our value. And then it becomes more natural and more fluid. And so I know we are past time. And so if anyone needs to leave, I absolutely respect that. But I would like to add that I've now tried something absolutely outside of the box that may sound insane, and it has worked very well. And that is, I now calculate the cost of materials and my time. So I will say, okay, I spent this much money to create this piece. And I spent this many, not even the hours, sometimes just the hours in the sourcing the materials. And I'll say, okay, I set that base price. Then I let the person choose what they are going to pay me. Say that my art is a gift and that I am so grateful to have created this thing and that I need to create it. And so receiving money for it is also a gift. And I used to set these prices and I was successful at that, but it kept people from being able to access my work. And people would sometimes really want it. And I'd say, well, that's not the price. And I can't change the price for you. And I can't change the price for you. It's not fair. So now I just let everyone choose their price with unshakable faith that I am taken care of. And it's terrifying. And especially coming from scarcity, coming from not having a lot of money, it shook up all of those blockages in me, all of those fears, so that I could release them and own my worth. So that may not be something that works for everyone. And that's just, it's another way I'm showing that there's the formula. There's the formula with a little bit of wiggle room. And then there's the completely unique way of doing it. So you're going to know what's right for you. I will provide these formulas in the Mighty Network. And so you can start to create your own formulas. Does anyone have any final questions or comments before we go?
I just wanted to say thank you very much for having us all here, Jessica. This has been really informative.
You're welcome. And so I'm noticing in the chat that this has maybe triggered some emotional release in folks, and that it can be heavy. And so I would like to, I'm going to stay behind because Coco had some questions for me. If anyone else would like to stick around for just if you have questions, if you require aftercare, that I don't want to just close this container, leave you off into the night to deal with that. So I'll close the container for the course right now and wish you all a beautiful night. If anyone wishes to stick around, I'm here. So, and then I'm here, Coco, and so I'm going to end the recording now. Thank you all so much. And then I'll stick around to touch on some extra stuff.